mistakenly thought the campus belle didn't understand foreign languages, so I secretly confessed to him in French, and even called him boyfriend. The next day, I transferred schools. I heard the campus belle went crazy looking for me. We met again at my French professor's house. He was my professor's daughter. The campus belle gritted her teeth. Long time no see. Boyfriend. I had a crush on Zhang Jue for 2 years. Not long after he transferred to our class, I had to transfer schools. With regret, on the day I left, taking advantage of the noisy badminton court, I mustered up the courage and shouted, Zhang Jue, je t'aime. It's French. It means I like you. Zhang Jue, who was playing badminton, looked stunned. He cast a few inquiring glances at me. I quickly averted my gaze like a thief and pretended to calmly give him a cheering gesture. Zhang Jue stared at me for a few seconds. The corners of his mouth suddenly curled into a smile. That smile seemed to have a magic that saw right through me. It made me feel guilty. Soon, it was halftime. Zhang Jue dropped his racket and came straight to sit beside me. He leaned back in his chair and smiled at me. What did you say just now? I nervously swallowed a few dry gulps. Nonsense. I said, go, go. Zhang Jue's gaze fell on my face. He crossed his arms and looked me up and down. That's not what I heard. My heart skipped a beat. I argued, it's the same thing, except what I said just now was in French. There was a moment of silence. I glanced sideways at him and saw him looking thoughtful. An imperceptible blush flashed across his face. He tilted his head and asked, it sounded nice. What was the compliment? I was confused. Huh? His smile deepened. He slowed his speech and said, I said that French phrase sounded nice. Remembering the meaning of that French phrase, my cheeks immediately burned like fireballs. I opened my mouth, tongue-tied, unable to utter a word. Zhang Jue, however, became inexplicably cheerful. His smile reached his eyes. He pointed to the badminton court, his eyebrows raised. Classmate Kwanzi, for every point I score, can you use that French phrase to cheer me on? What? I widened my eyes, feeling my brain start to smoke. For every point he scores, I have to say, I like you. No way, no way. I still have some pride. Seeing my reluctance, he continued talking to himself. This counts as contributing to the class, right? Then he made the decision on his own. It's settled then. After saying that, he ran back to the court. I stood there dumbfounded. Contributing to the class? I couldn't care less about the class at this point. My courage had diminished. After all, I'm timid and rule-abiding. I only dare to have secret crushes. I wouldn't dare to shout my feelings out loud anymore, not even in a foreign language. Things didn't go as planned. He had only been on the court for a few minutes, but had already scored 3 points in a row. He even waved at me triumphantly, signaling me to say that special cheer. I played dead, refusing to budge. I could only weakly mouth the words at him. He didn't seem satisfied and ran over to my side during the break, wearing a sweet smile. Classmate Kwanzi, you haven't cheered for me yet. I was miserable. I looked around and reluctantly whispered, Zhang Jue, je t'aime. Only then did he leave, smug and satisfied, leaving me blushing and flustered. Zhang Jue seemed to have gained some sort of divine power, becoming even more energetic. He scored many points in a row. I kept shouting, Zhang Jue, je t'aime, until I was exhausted. I barely made it to the end of the match. I grabbed my backpack and ran. However, just as I reached the school gate, Zhang Jue caught up. He said I worked hard cheering for him and insisted on treating me to milk tea. Then he took me to a milk tea shop. Remembering that I wasn't actually cheering for him, I blushed and took out my phone, trying to pay. But the screen wouldn't turn on. I realized my phone had died. Embarrassed, I froze. Zhang Jue smiled and paid. He even thoughtfully put a straw in my drink. I awkwardly thanked him. Zhang Jue shook his head and looked at me, lowering his eyes. Classmate Chenzi, are we friends now? I was stunned. I raised my milk tea cup and clinked it with his. Of course. He paused in thought and then smiled again. How do you say boyfriend and girlfriend in French? Boyfriend and girlfriend, boyfriend, girlfriend. I took a bite of a tapioca pearl and replied without thinking, girlfriend is petite amie. Boyfriend is petite amie. Oh, he seemed to have a sudden realization and stopped smiling, asking sincerely, so you're my petite amie? I'm your petite amie, right? A tapioca pearl went down the wrong way, and I almost choked. Our current relationship can't be described with those words. Those words are terms used for boyfriends and girlfriends in a romantic relationship. We're just ordinary friends. I was about to correct him when a wicked thought flashed through my mind. He doesn't understand anyway. It would just satisfy my hidden desires. So I ignored the loud gong-like sound in my heart and nodded. From the corner of my eye, I saw Zhang Xue's eyes curve into a smile, his face beaming with joy. He looked as if something wonderful had happened. I, holding back my shyness, smiled along with him. The early autumn wind whistled past, carrying the sweet scent of osmanthus in the air. Under the trees at the bus stop, 2 shadows in school uniforms, filled with the wind, were stretched long by the dusk light. I looked at Jiang Shui's hair occasionally brushing against mine in the shadows, and my heart raced. My heart pounded. Jiang Shui seemed to suddenly remember something and took a notebook out of his backpack, handing it to me. I just happened to remember you might need this, so take it. I took it and looked. It was full of function problems I couldn't solve. Surprised and delighted, I opened my mouth wide. How did you know I needed this? His earlobes turned red. As long as it's useful. I held the notebook close, overwhelmed with gratitude. It's so useful. I love you to death. Overcome with excitement, I blurted out, I love you to death. This common phrase I used at home just slipped out. Both of us froze, our faces instantly turning red. I misspoke, I quickly explained. Oh, Jiang Shui replied softly, his expression unreadable. But in the smile that appeared when he suddenly turned to look at me, I seemed to see a hint of indulgence. When the clouds were tinged with orange-red, my bus home arrived. Jiang Shui saw me off. I sat by the window and waved goodbye. He waved back. See you Monday, petite amie. See you Monday, boyfriend. My heart was pounding in my chest. I was so nervous I didn't know where to look. Remembering that he didn't understand, I pretended to calmly nod. Jiang Shui seemed very happy. He kept smiling. Me too. As the bus started moving, I couldn't contain my excitement any longer. I was definitely smiling where he couldn't see. By the time I realized we wouldn't be able to see each other on Monday, the bus had already driven far away. Back home, I hurriedly charged my phone, thinking I had to add Jiang Shui on WeChat first. I had to say goodbye properly. However, before I could turn it on, my mom took my phone. Leave it to charge. Xiao Yu is seeing us off. Let's go eat first. I reluctantly followed my mom to the restaurant. My parents have always worked abroad. I grew up with my grandparents and maternal grandparents. Everyone was happy that my mom could transfer her job back home to take care of me. Everyone was happy for me, but I was the only one thinking about Jiang Shui. The meal felt like it lasted an eternity. I finally made it to the end of the dinner. When I got home and tried to get my phone back, my mom stopped me again. Our flight is at 7 a.m. tomorrow. We need to get up at 5 a.m. Go wash up and sleep. I was anxious and tried to negotiate, but it was no use. I had to obey reluctantly. It wasn't until the next day, after we arrived in our new city, that I got my phone back, but my WeChat account had been canceled by my grandmother. My previous phone number was registered under my grandmother's ID. Since I was moving to another city with my mom, my grandmother canceled that number for fear of it being used by scammers. She even cautiously asked my aunt to log into WeChat and cancel the WeChat account as well. My QQ account was also linked to that number. I usually logged in with SMS verification codes. I couldn't remember the password at all. Now, everything was gone. I collapsed onto the bed in despair. Why did you cancel my number without telling me? My mom looked innocent. I didn't do anything. But my grandmother said she had already asked my teacher and confirmed that there was nothing important to say on WeChat, so she went ahead and canceled it. My grandmother also said that she had already posted a goodbye message for me on my WeChat moments. She told you to focus on your studies. I was on the verge of tears. Hearing me complain about losing contact with my friends, my mom warned me to prioritize my studies and strictly limited my phone usage. Thinking about my almost reciprocated crush being nipped in the bud, I was heartbroken. But I knew my mom's personality very well, especially her stance on puppy love. I knew resistance was futile, so I resigned myself to my fate. Later, busy adapting to the new school and the new teacher's teaching styles, and also busy getting along with new classmates, I put the matter of contacting Jiang Shui on hold. I had no time and no way to think about it. After calming down and thinking about it, even if this feeling was reciprocated, now was not the time. Not only were we thousands of miles apart, but we were also in the stressful final year of high school. All these factors indicated that perhaps parting ways for now was the best outcome. I certainly felt regretful about not being able to say a proper goodbye, but for now, this was all I could do. I could only wait until the college entrance exam was over to contact him. If possible, I would revisit my thoughts then. I sighed and muttered to myself, let it be. After moping for a few days, I adjusted my mindset and devoted myself to studying. At the end of the year, during the spring festival, I went abroad with my mom to reunite with my dad. I didn't go back to my hometown. I had completely lost contact with Jiang Shui and my previous friends. 6 months later, I got into my dream university and finally had my phone freedom. I asked my grandmother for help and finally got in touch with my old friend Chen Haonan. After catching up and lamenting our lost time, Chen Haonan asked about Jiang Shui. What did you do to him? He went crazy looking for you. He kept pestering me for your contact information. He wouldn't believe me when I said I didn't have it. Finally, I showed him your canceled WeChat account, and he reluctantly believed me. He even called you a liar. I felt guilty and apologetic. After all, in the internet age, it was unreasonable to lose contact without even saying goodbye. But I was curious. With our friendship sealed over a cup of milk tea, was it necessary for him to look for me so frantically? Did he say why he was looking for me? Number. He asked about your university preferences. He was upset for a while. I almost thought you two were dating. Later, he started dating a guy from another school. The guy's name is Shi Hao. He really likes that guy. I heard he even got custom bracelets engraved with the guy's name. My expression changed. The words asking for Jiang Shui's contact information were stuck in my throat. I couldn't hide my disappointment. I simply replied, "Oh, by the way, Jiang Shu told me to let him know as soon as I had your contact information." Don't tell him. We're not that close anymore. He probably said those things when he didn't have a boyfriend. Now that he has a boyfriend, reconnecting doesn't make sense to me. After all, my feelings for him weren't pure. I didn't want to pry into someone else's happiness under the guise of being an ordinary friend and cause myself unnecessary pain. Since we had already missed each other, it was best to completely cut off contact. That was the wise decision. Although my heart ached, I was also envious of that guy named Shi Hao. But I was, after all, just Quanzi. Chen Haonan then talked about his new girlfriend and asked if I was seeing anyone. Distracted, I asked, "How many do you have?" Without thinking, I asked, "How many do you have?" Chen Haonan yelled in surprise on the other end. I made an excuse and hung up. My long-lost hope was dashed. I sat on the dorm balcony, lost in thought. I opened my phone and ordered a few beers, mourning my years-long crush. Half drunk, my roommate Liu Wei came back. His face was flushed with excitement. He grabbed me and shook me. "Chenzi, I saw the French professor's daughter today." "Chenzi, I saw the French professor's daughter today. She's so beautiful, a figure like hers. She should still be in the professor's office. I'll take you to feast your eyes." He was full of praise. I brushed his hand away, unimpressed. Could she be more beautiful than Jiang Shui? I've never seen a girl prettier than him. Seeing that I was unmoved, he finally noticed the beer bottles beside me. "What's wrong?" "Heartbreak." "With whom? When?" He asked 3 questions in a panic. It was a crush. I told him about my almost successful crush. After hearing it, he also felt regretful. So close. If you hadn't transferred. It's over. Unrequited love. Regret is the norm. He also opened a beer. "Don't worry. I'll introduce you to someone else. How about the professor's daughter? She's definitely your type." I rolled my eyes at him. "Why don't you introduce me to the principal's daughter? Is she even prettier than our principal? All the beautiful smart girls. Introduce them all to me." His eyes lit up, and he slung his arm around me. He patted his chest, guaranteeing introductions. "Leave it to me." I scoffed and didn't take him seriously. I thought he was joking and went to wash up and sleep. The next evening, I went to a translation club meeting. The senior students looked at me with pity. After a few words of comfort, they started praising senior Liu Ruyun in front of me. That's when I realized Liu Wei had gotten drunk again. Not only did he tell everyone about my heartbreak, but he also took my drunken joke from last night as my dating criteria. He had discussed it with the translation club, and after a collective screening, they decided senior Liu Ruyun met my requirements. They started trying to set me up with senior Liu Ruyun. Liu Ruyun was the president of our translation club and also our French professor's niece. She had good grades and was also very pretty. However, her personality was too calm and steady. She always had a mature aura, like an elder in my family. I only respected her, not in a romantic way, so I refused without a second thought. Don't joke around. Senior and I are like siblings. I looked at senior Liu Ruyun, hoping she would back me up, but she remained silent and even blushed. I was speechless and confused. Perhaps because they saw senior Liu Ruyun's silence, the others became even more enthusiastic. Even the president has tacitly agreed. "Chenze, think about it carefully. We're waiting for your answer." Yeah, we're waiting for you to become the president's boyfriend." I had a headache, not knowing how to smooth things over. I could only glare at the drunk Liu Wei. Just then, there was a knock on the door. The French professor stood at the door smiling. "I've been listening for a while now. You guys are quite lively." The crowd, not wanting to miss the opportunity, added fuel to the fire. "Professor, you came at the right time. Chenzi is heartbroken and looking for a girlfriend. We think the president is suitable. We're trying to pair them up. The president is your niece. If they get together, Chenzi will be your nephew-in-law." The professor was amused. "They are quite a match, but matters of the heart can't be forced. Besides, Chenzi just got his heart broken. You shouldn't joke about this." The professor heard everything. I'm so embarrassed. But the teasing continued. These people were relentless. They were saying things like, "Keep it in the family," and were determined to set me up with Liu Ruyun. They were ridiculously persistent, especially that drunkard Liu Wei. He was already talkative,